A couple of months ago, on this channel, we've talked about probably the most technologically advanced sports car of the 1990s from Japan, the Mitsubishi 3000 GT, or as it was known in the domestic market, the GTO. And before we dive into today's topic, given that this car will be mentioned here a couple of times, for the full perspective, I highly recommend checking out the video about it first. The car we'll be discussing today came out pretty much in the shadow of its older brother. By that time, Japan's economic bubble had already burst, leading to a decade-long stagnation. However, Mitsubishi remained on top thanks to the boom in popularity of recreational vehicles, or RVs. That's how the Japanese refer to SUVs, crossovers, and minivans. Their Pajeros and Delicas were selling like hotcakes. But their sports flagship, the GTO, which was primarily aimed at the American market, didn't find much demand at home. The car's engine volume subjected its owners to additional taxes, prompting Mitsubishi to introduce a more accessible alternative for the Japanese market, the Mitsubishi FTO. You're watching Redline, and let's begin. The name FTO in itself was nothing new. It had been used before on the Mitsubishi Galant FTO, which was a step below the Galant GTO. The abbreviation stands for Fresco Turismo Omologato, which, translated from Italian, roughly stood for Fresh Touring Origination. Like its older sibling, the FTO's design was inspired by Italian cars. But while the GTO was often called a copycat of the Testarossa, the FTO had a fairly unique design, though some people see a bit of a fourth-generation Supra in the FTO, especially when viewed from the front. While the previous Fresco Turismo was only equipped with inline-4 engines, the new FTO, introduced in 1994 and built on a modified Mirage platform, offered several engine configurations depending on the trim level. The lowest and least sporty trim, the GS, was powered by a 1.8-liter 4G93 engine, producing 123 horsepower and 119 foot-pounds of torque, allowing the car to accelerate to 60 miles per hour in around 10 seconds. The more interesting GR and GPX trims featured a 2-liter V6, codenamed 6A12. In the GR, it developed 168 horsepower and 137 pound-feet of torque, while the GPX engine came with MyVec variable valve timing, boosting power to 200 horsepower and 147 pound-feet of torque, propelling the car to 60 miles per hour in 7 seconds. Keep in mind that by using a 2-liter engine, the FTO was still categorized as a compact car, and was therefore exempt from the annual taxes that applied to the 3-liter GTO. The GPX, though, wasn't different just under the hood. It also featured larger disc brakes with a 2-piston setup, while all other models had single-piston brakes. It came standard with 16-inch alloy wheels and a rear spoiler, which was optional on the other trims. All 3 engines powered the front wheels through either a 5-speed manual transmission or a 4-speed semi-automatic INVEX 2. The FTO was the first car to try out the second iteration of this transmission. INVEX, much like Porsche's Tiptronic, which appeared 4 years before the FTO did, allowed for manual gear changes. Like the first generation of INVEX, the transmission learned the driver's style and adapted to them, whether they preferred smooth, gradual driving or quick acceleration with the pedal to the metal. Interestingly, more FTOs were produced with this smart automatic transmission rather than the manual, which might seem odd since among most of the FTO's competitors, like the Integra and Celica, the manuals were much more popular. Although there were rumors that the FTO was supposed to get all-wheel drive like the GTO did, it ended up being limited to front-wheel drive only, which, to be honest, is kind of disappointing. The FTO with the VR4 treatment could have seriously doubled down in competing with the Celica, which was available in both front-wheel and all-wheel drive configurations. The car's interior, while not as striking as its exterior, still offered the necessary sportiness. The bucket seats were upholstered in strong fabric that maintained its shape over time, and even the cheapest GS trim came with automatic climate control and power windows, and the standard steering wheel was soon replaced with a Momo wheel featuring an airbag. Weighing about 2,668 pounds, the Mitsubishi FTO boasted excellent handling thanks to its stiff, sporty suspension, with McPherson struts up front and a multi-link setup in the rear. The car resisted body roll and had minimal understeer. The linear power delivery and the near absence of torque steer also contributed positively to the handling. As a racing driver Shinichi Katsura remarked, "If there were a front-wheel drive car category in drift competitions, this car would be the best." The FTO quickly gained popularity, so much so that it was awarded the title of Japan's Car of the Year in its first model year. To celebrate this, Mitsubishi released the FTO GPX Limited Edition, also known as the Car of the Year Edition, in 1995. This special edition could be recognized by its dandelion yellow color and green emblem on the rear pillars. These cars also came with a limited slip differential, which was otherwise an optional feature for the GPX. Only 207 units were produced. The year 1996 brought a few updates to the FTO. The V6 engine without MIVAC received an additional 10 horsepower, and new GP and GP special packages were introduced, essentially being the GR package but with the MIVAC V6. That same year, a limited run of 300 units of a semi-racing tuning package called Nakaya Tune became available for the GR, GP, and GPX trims. This package was developed with direct input from racer Akihiko Nakaya, who personally chose the parts. The FTO Nakaya Tune featured a suspension lowered by 1.4 inches with Öhlins dampers, ceramic brake pads, a stainless steel sport exhaust from Purofu, and a carbon fiber front lip. In 1997, the model underwent a facelift, along with the introduction of a few new versions. The most noticeable change was the redesigned front bumper, which featured a larger grille, a more pronounced front splitter, and separated fog lights and turn signals, which were previously housed in a single section. Additionally, the previously 4-speed semi-automatic Invex transmission gained an extra gear. The earlier GP Special model paved the way for the new GP version R, arguably the most interesting variant of the model as a whole. The FTO GP VR came with reinforced suspension, a limited slip differential, stiffer anti-roll bars, but lacked digital climate control and had reduced sound insulation in order to save weight. The GPVR also had a different spoiler, and the bucket seat colors were chosen to contrast with the exterior. For instance, blue seats in white GPVRs and red seats in black ones. By this time, over 30,000 FTOs had been produced, gaining popularity in Japan. Interest in this exclusively Japanese car also began to grow in other countries with left-hand traffic, such as Australia, England, New Zealand, Ireland, and even Hong Kong. As a result, FTOs started being imported through the grey market, and seeing this demand, Mitsubishi gradually began selling the FTOs in these regions. For instance, the FTO reached New Zealand in 1998, while it only arrived in the UK in 2000, just a few months before production ended, but more on that later. It's worth mentioning that Mitsubishi, a company known for experimenting with electric vehicles since the late 1960s, having installed batteries in the Libero and the hybrid Chariot, didn't overlook the FTO either. They equipped it with high-performance lithium-ion batteries that could charge in just 20 minutes, and a motor that produced up to 70 kilowatts or 95 horsepower. The car could travel up to 93 miles on a single charge with a top speed of 81 miles per hour. The FTO EV even set a Guinness World Record, covering 1,331 miles in 24 seconds, beating the previous unofficial record set by the GM EV1 by 275 miles. Of course, Mitsubishi didn't stop there, and in 2001, they introduced an electrified Eclipse at the Shikoku EV Rally, but that's a story for another time. Speaking of rallies and racing, it's time to mention a few of the FTO's racing achievements. The model competed in the JGTC, or All Japan Grand Touring Championship, in the GT300 class with the Taivion Trampio team. Under the hood was a Ford G63 engine modified by HKS, delivering 295 horsepower to the front wheels. The FTO was one of the few front-wheel drive cars in JGTC's history. However, it only participated for 2 seasons, 1998 and 1999, with drivers Takahiro Hara, Ralph Furman, and the previously mentioned Akihiko Nakaya. The team finished 5th in 1998 and 6th in 1999, after which they withdrew from the series, and the FTO never appeared in GT300 or the championship as a whole ever again. Returning to the car itself, in July 2000, new side impact safety standards came into effect in Japan. Coupled with sharply declining sales of the FTO, only 690 units selling in 1999 and just 311 in 2000, Mitsubishi deemed it impractical to try and update or modernize the model. At the final amount of 36,805 units, the FTO was discontinued alongside its older brother, the GTO, never officially making it to left-hand drive markets. You've been watching Redline, and if you like this video, don't forget to leave a like, subscribe, and go check out some other videos as well. And I'll see you in the next episode.